are live from Miami, and right now I'm Mike Carlson. We are live on ESPN UK Twitter and YouTube and Facebook.
Just about everywhere.
Good to see you. As the Bard once said, Mike, welcome to Miami.
The Bard?
The Bard.
Was he down here? Yeah, I was. It's beautiful because we're on the beach. The sun's just coming up, so the place looks just gorgeous. And I was going to wear one of my best Hawaiian shirts down
Disappointed
here.
you didn't.
But, well, A, it's not Hawaii. It's Miami.
Fair point.
And B, look at you. I had to kind of
try
to keep up.
We'll get you in shorts and one of the legendary Carlson Hawaiian shirts later on. I promise you, gang. We'll get photos of that pushed out on our social channels at the NC Show. It's great to see you here, in for the big game, of course. Friday is still super hyped up in the city, isn't it? And then there's a strange kind of lull on Saturday before the game.
Saturday really is the lull before the storm. And I think we're going to have a storm, in the Super Bowl this year. It could be a good one. But everybody's kind of a little bit tired from a week of constant hyping up and analyzing and micro-analyzing and macro-analyzing.
Let's add to that.
Yeah, and so I think Saturday's nice to have a little day of rest and to ponder everything that you've said that was wrong.
Yeah.
and you're going to contradict yourself during the game on Sunday.
I love that start. Most importantly of all, have you got tickets for Gronk's Bash yet?
No.
What?
No.
Oh, there was counting on you, Mike, to sort us out.
I called and he's changed his number.
Okay. We'll work on that. We've still got about 24 hours. Gronk's Bash Saturday. That is the hot ticket in town, of course. All right, let's get down to business then. I want to start by getting your perspective on the key matchups, because you're absolutely right. This is what happens in Super Bowl week. Hot takes, tepid takes, all kinds of takes flying around left, right, and center. So we need Iron Mike to add a bit of clarity. So there are 3 or 4 key areas that I want to get your perspective on for everybody watching at home. Let's start with 2 superstars that are getting quite a lot of traction in a position, I think, that has seen a real renaissance in recent years, particularly because of them. Different kinds of players, and they've had different kinds of seasons, and they're in different kinds of form going into the game. Travis Kelce and George Kittle. And we know there's a lot to his game, but it's been quite quiet in the playoffs in terms of production for obvious reasons. Kelce, on the other hand, particularly against the Texans, absolutely went off. Who do you think has the bigger game on Sunday?
It really depends on how you decide to defense Kansas City. And a lot of teams, including the Patriots, when in the game in the regular season, where they should have beaten the Chiefs in that game, but didn't. One of the things you can do is to try to take away the overhead game. Try to take away those big plays. And to do that, you almost have to give Travis Kittle a lot of catches across the middle of the field. You can try to block up the middle of the field, but that gives you the danger of the outsides, as we saw, and Patrick Mahomes took advantage of the outsides in the conference championship game. So I think Kelce probably gets more catches because he's just that much more integral to what they do in the game. If Kittle has a lot of catches, it's a good sign for the 49ers. But I think me and almost everybody else expects that they're going to come out trying to establish the run, trying to run the ball, which they've had great success doing in the playoffs. And then the passing game becomes something off-play action where not just Kittle but other people are open. You could argue, too, that Kittle had the big play of the season, really, with that catch in New Orleans, where he broke tackles and moved all the way downfield. That was really the game-changing play in that game.
Okay, next up, you got the Chiefs' offensive line against this front four for San Francisco that is superb. They don't need to blitz very much because the front four gets it done pretty much all by themselves. And for Kansas City, continuity on the O-line, 4 games in a row. The same starting O-line for the first time this season. So they're starting to build up, and they've been protecting Mahomes pretty capably. So despite the fact that the 49ers bring 4 most of the time, they're still in the top 5 in terms of sacks. So that's a really interesting dynamic. Which way does that give, do you think?
It's, both teams are like that. It's funny how similar in a lot of ways, in a lot of big ways, both teams are. They both like to just rush 4. Steve Spagnuolo, almost everywhere he's gone, has mostly rushed 4. And so either defensive coordinator could try to change the game plan a little bit for the factor of surprise. For the Chiefs, I think the question is, can they open running holes, and will they try to? As you say, they're really good at protecting Mahomes with the unit that's out there starting now. Fisher and at one tackle back is huge for them, and Dr. Tardif from my alma mater, McGill, is really good as well. But it's a little bit deceptive in terms of pass protection because Mahomes, like many of the great quarterbacks, makes the line look better.
Enhances it,
because he gives them a little bit. He can make a little bit extra time for himself.
It's a really good point. It's almost the opposite of a quarterback that makes the line look worse because they're responsible for the sack, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about Nick.
And he's very good too. He's very good too at seeing where the line is taking people. So if Tardif, for example, is taking his man inside, Mahomes is going to go outside. And he's got the ability to see that while he's looking downfield as well for receivers.
Nice trick to be able to pull. Let's talk a bit about Nick Bosa, because he's a player on our show anyway this week. We haven't necessarily paid enough lip service to. Garoppolo said that getting the second pick in last year's draft made up for his injury. That's brotherhood, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you quarterback saying
and
that.
it is a great pick, a great point, because it was a great pick. And you can scheme pass rush. We've seen Patriots are a team that does that. Detroit tries to do it in the same fashion. But having a really good individual pass rusher is something that you just can't imitate. It's why Kansas City went out and got Terrell Suggs at the end of the season. It's why San Francisco signed Dee Ford away from Kansas City, because the guy who is a one-on-one nightmare for almost any blocker is a rare talent, an absolutely rare talent, and you don't have to scheme for him. And that's what Bosa does. The other thing I love is that they move Bosa inside sometimes, which I'm not sure because I didn't see enough of this college thing, but I don't think they ever did that, in college. But it gives them that quickness inside, which nowadays, especially against a mobile quarterback like Mahomes, is really essential.
One of the stories that came out this week, Nick Bosa was saying he's been chatting a lot with his brother Joey, who, because he's at the Chargers, knows a lot more about the Chiefs than many other players. How important do you think that is? And you mentioned Dee Ford, that factor as well, when you've got a leg up, I guess, in terms of intel on your opponent.
It could help. There's two things going on. One is the individual things.
Right.
I rushed against him in practice, and if you dip, he's going to go, and you can take advantage. That kind of intel. The second thing is the Chargers played the Chiefs pretty well defensively this year. So but that's more of his coordinator's worry. I don't think
you've been listening to the show. I might. Me and J-Bell will talk about that on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I don't think Bosa's going to go to Robert Saleh and say, this is what the Chargers did, because he's watched the tape and he knows. But there is that kind of thing.
Detail,
and when you're aware of it, if his brother says, "Look, when we did this, I had to do this, and I had to make sure I did this," that can help as well.
All right, the 49ers run game, of course, has been prolific all season long, particularly in the playoffs, and it's a three-headed monster. Even if Mostert has the best head of hair on that three-headed monster, Tevin Coleman looks like he's going to be fit to start. That was an injury out going into the Super Bowl fortnight, but he looks good.
We'll see about that.
Really?
Well, shoulder injury.
So you think they might be talking that up, and
they'll probably see what first contact is like. I'm not convinced he'll get a lot of carries.
All right. Two, possibly three-headed monster then. 180-plus rushing yards in both playoff games. The Chiefs run D, interesting dynamic there. Poor most of the season, and yet in the playoffs, prolifically good, stopping Derrick Henry most notably.
Yeah, and that was the big thing. And stopping Derrick Henry is a different thing from stopping the 49ers run game, no matter
different
who plays.
Kind of
Jeff Wilson could play if Coleman's shoulder, hurts him. But because the 49ers are running mostly zone, they're running for a play-action pattern. The Chiefs played Minnesota pretty well, who run a lot of play action in a similar fashion. But you have to be able to move against the flow. Because they're asking you to go with the flow most of the time, so you have to be able to pursue against it to close those lanes down. And the running backs are going to be simply looking for a hole, not running to a specific hole the way Derrick Henry basically does.
So it's a tougher matchup in that respect. You think, even though
I'm not sure you'll see the big guys like Mike Pennell or Natty, who played very well for the Chiefs. But I'm not sure you'll see as much of them in this game because they'll probably want the quicker pursuit, and they've got a couple of guys in their line who can do that, but to me that's a really fine matchup, a really great one.
One more for you. Dan Orlovsky on the show yesterday, of course, and we were talking about the 49ers' predilection to play zone over man much of the time, matched up against the speed of this receiving core, the speed overall of this Kansas City offense. So if they can get them in man, get them in one-on-one matchups, which are the key battles there, do you think? For example, Sherman, is he going to be in trouble?
That to me is one of the most interesting questions of the whole game. You remember when the Jags played Jalen Ramsey man-on-man against Gronkowski, and had great success with that. I was saying this earlier in the week that I would consider using Sherman on if the tight end's to his side at the very least. To cover the tight end. If you play zone against the Chiefs, you're giving Kelsey catches. Kelsey can beat any zone that you're going to play. He reacts really well to it, and Mahomes waits for him to do what he's going to do, and then gets him the ball. But you almost have to, or you at least have to give safety coverage to whoever's covering Hill on one side and probably Hardman on the other side. And I don't think that the 49ers cornerbacks have been challenged the way they will be by two such fast guys. And Hill's a world-class sprinter, and Hardman's not that far behind.
The fastest core in the business. All right, cracking stuff, Mike. We're going to check in with an old friend next, who I ran into on Radio Row yesterday. Lots of friends from all around the world, of course, congregate at Radio Row. We'll see a bit more of Radio Row in detail later on. But first, let's get some hot takes from our friend Ross Tucker. Ross Tucker, you're everywhere. Super Bowl week, you're everywhere. I saw you slinging on opening night. You're writing articles left, right, and center. You are the hardest working man in show business. I always say it every year.
I'm trying. None of it is work. Everybody, I never once say to my wife, I got to go to work. I got to write an article. I got to do a show. I got to do one of my podcasts. I love it. I'm 40. I still haven't had a real job yet, so I'm going to try to stay away from it as long as I can.
Keep rolling. But I want to talk about the 49ers schedule first things first, and the importance of that win against Seattle, the Dre Greenlaw play. I spoke to him at opening night about it, and I said, what did Coach Salah say to you after? Were you the most popular man in the locker room after that? And he downplayed it, but how big was that moment?
No, he was the most popular guy in the locker room because he got all those guys a week off.
Right.
I mean, that is huge. I'm telling you, that is one of the best hits I've ever seen in my life. That was a 255-pound tight end who caught the ball, and if this was the goal line right here, he's like an inch from the goal line, and Dre Greenlaw came in, and bam! I mean, that was unbelievable. I asked him on Monday night. He said it was the best hit of his life.
Yeah.
And it was. And what's crazy, if you think about it, Nat, is like if the Dolphins don't beat the Patriots week 17, then the Chiefs have to win 2 road games, 3 playoff games, 2 road games to get here. If they call pass interference on Hollister, or they don't have the delay game, or Greenlaw doesn't make the best hit I've ever seen, then the Niners have to win 3 games on the road at Philly and then 2 more. I don't think either one of these teams is here at the Super Bowl if it wasn't for what happened in Week 17.
Yeah, fine margins. Great to see Ross, and he made some fantastic
Looks great
points.
with the beard, doesn't he?
Looking sharp. One of the things I think that is key, obviously, if you've got a first-round bye, home field advantage, that gives you a significant leg up over the opposition when it comes to the postseason. But that play by Dre Greenlaw, who we caught up with at Radio Row on Monday, how important could that prove to be this season?
It really, and when you think about it, this whole playoffs depended on a couple of really bad, if the Chiefs lose in New England, if New England doesn't lose to Miami, if the Saints don't lose to Atlanta in that game in New Orleans, if they beat San Francisco in that game, the whole playoff seeding changes and it could be different. So things have fallen really well for these two teams. Greenlaw is going to be key in here because speed of linebackers is essential when you're playing the Chiefs because like San Francisco, they're going to attack you a lot across the middle of the field. And Greenlaw is very good in coverage, as we've seen. And I think he and Warner in particular you might wind up seeing them as 3-down linebackers a lot more than you would expect against a team as explosive as the Chiefs.
I want to get on to coaches, Mike, and lead off with Andy Reid because, again, somebody much beloved in the game for what he's given to the game. He puts into view, I think, that classic question when you're evaluating legacy, whether you're a player or a coach, how significant a Super Bowl win is on the CV. And I'm going to refer you, to someone like Marino, of course, one of the all-time great quarterbacks. There's no doubt about that, and achieved so much, but never got a ring, and that's pretty much the first thing everyone says.
Yeah, I think when you've got the body of a career that someone like Andy Reid has, it's not a significant factor. To me, he's probably the second best coach in NFL history who doesn't have a Super Bowl ring.
And the best?
Bud Grant being the number one. And Bud Grant had no trouble going into the Hall of Fame, as you remember. Super Bowl wins tend to be a thing that, for people who are on the borderline of the Hall of Fame, become a bigger thing. But Andy Reid, to me, is a Hall of Fame coach now.
You look at that. I mean, 220 career wins, including the playoffs. That's a 6.18 winning percentage. See how I did the maths so quickly in my head there, Iron Mike. 10 division titles he's won between teams. What do you think, is a point that Ross was making to me off camera, about the importance you should weight on going into different situations and building up a successful team.
I think that's a really good point, and Andy Reid has been very good at it. He's been helped by a couple of good front offices, but he's been the guy in charge, especially in Kansas City. You know, they've been his decisions. He was great in Philadelphia at drafting to positions of strength so that he would have the flexibility when the people who were in place got expensive and wanted to go, that he could then have replacements ready. He was very foresighted in that. He knows very well the kinds of players he needs to succeed with his system, and he's done a pretty good job of getting those kind of players. And of course he had the vision to see Patrick Mahomes when people were doing things like trading up for Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important point, and the situation has been win-win for both sides, of course. Mahomes falling into this era of Andy Reid where he wants to progress and introduce new things, or I guess establish or elaborate on the innovation that he's had throughout a lot of his career. It's the perfect storm, really, and it's been a terrific combination there. Talk a bit more, though, about that offensive mind of Andy Reid. We referenced a little bit on yesterday's show with Donovan McNabb in particular and Mike Vick as well. But I hear this all week long. He's an innovator. He's a great innovator. And we see what he's doing with this Chiefs offense now. But talk through that chronology of Reid as an offensive mind.
Well, it's funny because, because Mahomes has the mobility that almost all of his really good quarterbacks have had. But if you think about it, he's also gotten a couple of good games from guys like A.J. Feely, whose status around the league then went up, and they went on to other teams who were never able to do as much. He likes smaller backs. He likes quickness. He's never had, apart from Terrell Owens, really, a really dynamic number one receiver. Deshaun Jackson for a couple of years, maybe someone who could take the top off a defense the way Tyreek Hill does.
Yeah.
But he likes speed in general. He likes big offensive lines, which is smaller, quicker running backs can go behind. Although he had Deuce Staley, who was a really good straight ahead kind of runner, and it's a West Coast based offense that he's evolved for the modern game and kept up with in the modern game. And of course the modern game football has become really offensively a matchup game. It's almost like basketball in that sense. So he's got guys who can win individual matchups, and his offense is geared to get them to win those matchups.
And I guess he tackles that stereotype that if you're using words like innovation and progressive, that you have to have a 37-year-old or even younger head coach. Sean McVay, for example, this time last year was getting a lot of plaudits for what he was achieving on the field and the way they approached the game. But I think that reputation was to some degree enhanced because he was such a young gun head coach.
Yeah, and everybody wants to jump on that new hot trail. I mean, it was about, I don't know what it was, 10, 15 years ago. Peter King wrote that famous article about the 55 speed limit, that no coach was ever successful after 55.
Right.
And that was like the year of Tom Coughlin and then Belichick and Andy Reid. If
that
you're
article
smart,
hasn't aged well.
Yeah, if you're smart, that doesn't go away.
Right.
And you have to recognize how that works. Now, the other problem, of course, is that players change, generations change, and the way you interact with players doesn't necessarily change. But winning is a great persuader of even the most recalcitrant player.
And you hear stories of how Reid will rock up in a meeting and found a play in a Division II college game that he really likes the look of and want to table that. It's brilliant to see. All right, his counterpart, Kyle Shanahan, has a similar reputation. Of course, he's at the start of his head coaching career, relatively speaking, compared to Reid. But there are, similar. He has similar attributes, gets similar plaudits. I mean, the word wizard has been used by at least one of his players. We've talked about Austin Hooper going in his rookie season and how blown away he was, thinking every offensive mind is like that and realizing they're not. Talk about the kind of same question relating to Shanahan. You hear innovator, you hear all these words and adjectives applied. Talk about the kind of development you've seen in his career from coordinator to head coach and the kind of offenses he's putting into place.
Yeah, well, first of all, as head coach, he's been very smart in that, like Robert Saleh was a great hire as defensive coordinator. And similarly with McVay in Los Angeles and Wade Phillips,
right.
you get someone who you can lay that on and
let him run with it.
Be successful. I think what you've seen is a blossoming of what he started in Atlanta in terms of the way that they use motion, they use influence, they use deception.
Use motion more than any other team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't see why more teams don't. I mean, even if you have nothing to do with it, motion tells you an awful lot about what the defense is doing. And his quarterback whatever you say about Jimmy Garoppolo, has absorbed those lessons, you know, and is able to read what the defense is going to do or have a better idea of it. The one question I have, and we didn't go into Andy Reid and clock management, but I'm sure everybody else has done that all week long, so you know that. Shanahan, of course, his most famous game is the loss to the Patriots, where if they had simply run the ball 3 and out twice in that second half, they win that game, just because there won't be enough time for the Patriots to catch up. The same sort of thing happened in Seattle this year, a game that they eventually lost, but they could have won. They were in a position to win that if McLaughlin had made a field goal at the end. But you know, again, if you run the ball a little bit more when you have to, then you got a better chance of winning. But no problem running the ball this year.
Doesn't appear to. A lot inevitably people talk to Shanahan all week long about that, but he's fronting up to it. The Houston Super Bowl defeat, quite unequivocal in saying it wouldn't change anything. You know, we made some, or rather, I'm not running away from it. We realized we made mistakes. We wouldn't want to make the same mistakes again, but it hasn't seemed to phase him. It hasn't seemed to got in his head at all.
Yeah, and one of the keys, I think, for Kansas City is to try to get them out of the play-action mode. I mean, one way you do that is take the lead. The other one is to put huge pressure on the quarterback if he tries to pass off play action. And play action is designed to slow down the pass rush, among other things, so that if he has to throw drop back, then they're in trouble. But most of his play-action passing offense is designed to get him an open receiver. Go right back to the West Coast days, where that short pass to the running back out of the backfield, the tight end coming across, the slant to Jerry Rice, those were all designed to be safe passing plays. So if you had 3rd and 4, you could throw that for 5 yards, and you didn't have to run the ball.
Yeah, interesting. All right, good stuff. Key battle that we haven't talked about all week long, but Mike has put us in the picture. Shanahan and Reid, that's going to be fascinating on Sunday. Let's get back to Radio Row. We were there yesterday checking things out, and it's fair to say, and Mike, to use one of your favourite phrases, it was off the chart. One of the mainstays of Super Bowl week is Radio Row, and it does what it says on the tin. All around us, radio stations all across America and beyond, broadcasting all week long. You'll see ESPN set in the background. That's obviously the best set here. I am a company man, if nothing else. And all week long, shows day and night means a hell of a lot of content. Thursday tends to be one of the biggest and the best on Radio Row because celebrities from all across the globe are in town, and all kinds of disciplines as well. So you got Big Papi, we've seen, the Boston Red Sox superstar. Hollywood actor Miles Teller was in earlier. Tua was getting a lot of attention, of course. Big attention on him a couple of months at the draft. And Dak Prescott, been there, done it, got the Dak t-shirt, maybe the biggest star of all from the NFL galaxy today. Now, didn't I just say you could walk around here and rock up and run into a superstar? Darren Waller of the Oakland Raiders. Darren, firstly, congratulations on an incredible season.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You've got a lot of fans back home. Hard Knocks always helps. Hard Knocks appearance always helps to build that global profile. What was it like filming it?
I mean, it was awesome for me. I was actually looking forward to it. I wasn't even really nervous about it just because, you know, I had already gotten rid of like all the shame and stuff from my story. So it was like, I'm not afraid. I don't care what anybody really thinks. And I feel like it would be helpful for people to see that even someone that they may look up to and feel like everything's going great for them is like, no, like I battle things every day like everyone else, so I feel like it was bigger than me at that moment.
Just a quick one on the big game on Sunday, and tight ends in particular. You must be actually very happy that Travis Kelce, George Kittle are playing at the level they are, because that's good news in terms of paydays for the rest of the tight ends in the league, right?
Absolutely, man. Those guys are putting on for the position. I love watching them play, love studying them. They're doing great things for the position, doing everything in all facets of the game, so I'm looking forward to watching them on Sunday.
It may be an unfair question, but which of those two do you think is going to have a bigger impact in the game on Sunday?
I'm kind of going reverse psychology. I think, you know, George Kittle's been they've been running the ball a lot this postseason. I feel like George Kittle might break on the scene on Sunday.
Yeah, he's been quiet in terms of receptions, but yeah, it could be his day.
Absolutely, I agree.
Darren, good to chat to you, man. Enjoy your day. Darren Waller, unsurprisingly, very humble guy. One of my favourite players, and what a season he's had.
I love Radio Row. It's like when you talk to your parents long distance and they think they have to yell louder so you can hear it through the phone.
It's exactly like that. Right, we've got to get your top 5 in our mic. It wouldn't be a Nat and Mike show without your top 5. And unsurprisingly, guess which theme we've gone for?
Yeah. Well, you told me in advance, so I'd know. Best Super Bowls. So many of them to choose from because I love the first one. I really love number 4 when Kansas City won. But top 5, heavily weighted to ones I've been at and seen in that sense. Number 5, the Giants over the Patriots, 2007, 17-14. Where I said to Rod Woodson at halftime, the Giants are leading 3-7 because that was the way that game was going to go. Number 4, the Steelers in Dallas, Super Bowl 13, 35-31, 4 TDs for Terry and 3 for Roger Staubach. Great catch by John Stallworth, just better than the one a couple of years before where Lynn Swann made the famous catch. Number 3, because I keep changing the numbering, so I have to look at my thing to see which one's which. Super Bowl 49, the Patriots and the Seahawks. You remember jumping out of the seat when, why did they run the ball? You, me, and OC all kind of looking at each other on the side. Super Bowl 51, the Patriots over Atlanta, the 28-3 comeback, which we've talked about, but what a fantastic game.
They're not number 1, amazing.
Mark Wahlberg, bye-bye.
Yeah.
And number 1, again, me and Rod Woodson were doing it on TV. 2009, Super Bowl 43, Pittsburgh 27, Arizona 23. James Harrison, 100-yard interception return just before the end of the half. Santonio Holmes, Kurt Warner, great comeback with Larry Fitzgerald, and then Santonio Holmes, one of the greatest catches I've ever seen, right below our position in the corner of the end zone from Ben Roethlisberger. And that remains to me the best Super Bowl I've ever seen.
Yeah, win. Loving your work, Mike. Right, big 3. We've been asking our guests all week long 3 big questions, leading off with who is going to be the most unlikely hero of Super Bowl 54?
There could be a lot of those. I mean, there often is, isn't there? I think for the 49ers, you might be looking at someone like Kendrick Bourne making a big catch.
He's a clutch TD
that no one is really expecting. Everyone else, I mean, most of the people have been covered. That's the thing. Hardly anything is unexpected these days from them. Kyle Juszczyk could have a game too, because what you look for in these games are the guys who are not going to be the focus of the other team's defense.
Right.
You figure they've got to step up and make plays. And over on the just over on the other side of the ball for Kansas City, I really think someone on the defense has to make plays. And I hate to say this because I hate the way he covers, but Kendall Fuller, if he's not called for pass interference, can make really big plays.
That would be a comeback after the season he's had. All right. Who are you looking? This is the most important question I'm going to ask you, Mike. Who are you most looking forward to in terms of the halftime show, J-Lo or Shakira? I know you're a big fan of both.
It's a matter of almost complete indifference to me.
Really?
I'd have to say. I'd say Shakira. But yeah.
Who's your favorite halftime act of all time?
Oh, my favorite halftime act of all time is probably someone who's never appeared at halftime.
Yeah, well, you can have that if you want.
Springsteen, maybe. Al Hirt, New Orleans Jazz Band in Super Bowl I, the Florida State Florida State marching band.
Expect anything else from you.
They were great. The Florida State. No, sorry, not Florida State. Florida A&M. The Florida A&M marching band. No, there's a big difference.
I'll take your word for it. And the biggie, who's going to win the game?
I'm going to go with San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. I won't be upset if either team wins. I'm emotionally invested, and I think if the Chiefs win, it's probably going to be a higher scoring game than if San Francisco win. So it's really a matter of who controls the game and how much Patrick Mahomes can punish you for the slightest mistake you make.
Interesting. I thought you were based on what you were saying today. I thought you were leading Kansas City.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Are
you flip-flopping?
I've been flip-flopping all week because I keep talking myself into Kansas City and then picking San Francisco. That's the way I work.
This is why you have 11 or 12 in your top 5s most of the season. Great work, Mike. It's great to see you.
It's always fun. It's great. Much more fun. We should do this every week.
Well, we are going to do it every week. We're rolling into the off-season, don't forget. But before all that, we've got a fantasy pod to drop. That's going to drop Saturday morning in the UK. And, of course, the big game on Sunday, we're going to be reacting straight after that. Nikki Bandini and I from the stadium right after the game. So that pod will drop, I reckon half an hour, 40 minutes after the game is done and dusted. So make sure you subscribe to us and you won't miss a trick. Great to see you, Mike. Go and find a pool party. There are quite a few going on, I think, Mike.
Yeah, it won't be Gronk's, but I have been invited to a few.
I bet you have. Look after yourself. Enjoy the game. And we will see you for the Monday pod. Bye for now.